states. In a long term, maybe if not short, I think BIMSTEC will have to look for eastward expansion, that is at least to bring Indonesia and Malaysia into as observers. Now, the good thing which happened during the 5th BIMSTEC summit was to finalize and approve the BIMSTEC charter, which will provide enough wherewithal to the BIMSTEC Secretariat. And there had been a lot of promises that BIMSTEC Secretariat will be strengthened. The last point, if I have time, I think the health of the rivers will be very important, because most of the rivers flowing into the Bay of Bengal brings not only silt, that's natural, but also lots of other polluted materials. That is something that we need to look into. The last point is that the impact of climate change, which will have a drastic effects on the glaciers in the Himalayas. That will have another problem. So we need to look at all these the challenges in a very holistic manner. Not only we should focus on the connectivity, but we'll have to focus on these issues in a very holistic manner. I think, Vikram, I'll stop, and I think I have. Thank you very much.
Bang on time, Sumit Bhai. I understand our colleague, Mr. Tirapat Mongkol Naveen, needs to leave for the airport. So, with the permission of my colleagues, may I invite him to take the podium? Please.
Good afternoon again, Excellency, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So I'm speaking here on behalf of Thailand about riverine connectivity and the multimodal transport. For river transportation, what we've known is that so far it's like a traditional kind of transportation, as you all know, right? But at the moment, it is underutilized. For example, in Thailand, waterways account only for 17%, 17% of the transport cargo in our country. And I think underutilized in so many countries at the moment. However, it has some advantage for shipping on the river and waterways. Firstly, it doesn't have it's not expensive. The cost is much lower when we transport goods products by river. Secondly, it can carry heavier products. And thirdly, it's suitable for agricultural products, because agricultural products transportation cost, if you keep it, it would be ideal if you keep it as low as possible, because agricultural product doesn't have much value and when selling, right? So it's very suitable for agricultural products. And that made me think of one example of this kind of water river transportation that I've been seeing myself in Thailand. Once I used to visit a rice mill in Ayutthaya province, almost like 100 kilometers from Bangkok. What I see in there is that it's a kind of agricultural products, right? The rice mill gather the rice from several fields and have and then the place that I visited was one of the biggest company in Thailand, like the CPF producing food, and they produce the rice at the spot, at the mill right beside the river. And at that river, they have the dock that they can directly transport their goods, the rice from the dock up to directly to Bangkok, which I think would offer them very low, much less cost, and I think it's quicker to do that. Another point I would like to talk about is the synchronization of the riverine connectivity. On the topic, I think the organizer also mentioned about the synchronization of ACMEC and BIMSTEC. When I look at ACMEC programs and plan of cooperation, the master plan of cooperation at the moment, there's it also mentioned master plan for seamless connectivity, including multimodal transport and inland water transportation is included. So I think as this ACMEC also master plan and with the water transportation included, BIMSTEC has a master transportation connectivity plan. I think it would be it can be synchronized together seamlessly as at least one or at least two of the ACMEC members are members of BIMSTEC, and that we would be able to help to promote the connection of connectivities between ACMEC region and South Asian region. And then saying connecting the two regions, how can we utilize the river transportation to cooperate between our two region, because the rivers are not connected between our region and South Asia directly, right? Because here is the Brahmaputra rivers that flowing from the north to northeast India to Bangladesh to the Bay of Bengal. While for ACMEC, there are the cooperation among the countries on the three rivers, Mae Khong, Chao Phraya, and Ayeyarwady. Okay. I think what we can design is the transportation of goods products, mainly agricultural, from northeastern region through to Bangladesh, Bay of Bengal, and then connected to the port, which connect Bangladesh and the ports in Myanmar. And that after that, through Myanmar, it can cross to Thailand if with the future development in place. It can be crossed to Thailand, and as a land bridge, it can cross to another part of Thailand and into other countries as well. As that all will happen after all the land bridge projects are start to be implemented. But that's the vision that and all the plan that we can think of, and then these connectivity can be envisioned and can be achieved. Apart from this transportation, let me ask you to look at another side of connectivity, a softer side actually, is for which is for the tourism development, which would help promote people-to-people connectivity in a way. Okay, I've been in our region, I have been taking time traveling and using like facility of tourism facility in many location, especially like the boat trip. If you go to Bangkok, you can see every day, every evening, I suppose, there's so like a high traffic on the river, which is the cruise. It's the Chao Phraya cruise, a very famous Chao Phraya cruise, going through the river, and when tourists can have a good view of many important places along the river, and it even connect the river connect the Bangkok to Ayutthaya. A day trip could be made even. And in other countries like Singapore, I used to take the Singapore river trip as well, which is very good. Or if not a trip, in Vietnam, in Hoi An, there's a development of
Could I rush
tourist.
you up a little bit? We're running a little bit out of time.
Okay. And also in Hoi An, we can take the trip along the river. Not to mention the market, the famous floating markets in Thailand. So these are development. This is a good example of models which we can learn, which India, which Northeastern region, or Bangladesh can learn, and that we can exchange. We can exchange the group of delegates, and we can come up with a good development of the tourism along the river, and thus promote people-to-people connectivity. Also, I just want to shortly mention that we have a MOU for economic cooperation in place to discuss with the government of Assam, and that more trade flow between our two countries can have both for the northeastern region, and river can be used for that as well. And another important potential cooperation is the agreement for a sister city between Guwahati and Chiang Mai, which is very interesting. We can learn a lot, like for the Chiang Mai culture and Assam culture can be discussed and promoting. Like also in Chiang Mai, there's a Ping River tourist attraction. That's also very interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your remarks. And I won't aim to sum up now. I'll try and do that towards the end so that we can hear our speakers first. May I invite my friend Azad Saab now to take a turn? Would you wish to speak from there? Mr. Azad is the Special Envoy for the Climate Vulnerable Forum, of which the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh is the president right now. Azad Saab, 7 minutes, possible?
So good afternoon, dear colleagues. This morning, we heard so many positive things from our guests. Connectivity in terms of rail, road, waterway, airway, ICT, power, energy. So many. So we can take these are very positive discussions we had. The ICT connectivity, see me, we 4, see me, we 3. That is Southeast Asia, Middle East, West Europe, 3 and 4. Both these connectivity, half of the globe connected with these cables. I believe after lunch, it's a good time to have sleeps. So let me have a story. A fisherman catches 3 fish every day and sleeps under a tree. So an intelligent person asked him, why every day after catching 3 fish you sleep? You don't, what should I do? You catch more fish, more fish. Why? More fish, more money. Why more money? Then cumulatively, more money means your father's medicine, more money means your children's education, more money means your wife's clothes, everything. So, what? So you'll be happy. You know, I'm happy too. Under this tree, I used to sleep. Very unfortunate part, that tree is not there. Very unfortunate is, water is not there, fish is not there. These are the situation of the lower riparian. Every year floods. Why? Because room of the river is absent. Siltation, hugely, 2 billion ton per year. Now we are talking about the hill economy. Did we do the deforestation or we are working for the afforestation? What we are doing for managing this siltation? Rather, we are putting embankments, spending a huge amount of money. Where is the nature-based solution? Flood in the delta, flood is common. Flood will be there. We need to know how to play with the flood. When we need to put our crops. So there we need to have the nature-based solution and local-led action. So the devastating part is done by the climate change. Yes, something is not in the hill, it is in the sea. It is all over the globe. As our friends in the second section were telling about global temperature. So sea level will rise. Now, directly come to the issues of multimodal transportation. I will tell about some challenges. Are we using the water properly? On hydro? On agriculture? I believe all the answers will not be positive. Are we polluting the rivers? In Guwahati? In Bangladesh part? Brahmaputra? I will not give the answer, you know the answers. These are the challenges. Are all the bridges with the same height that can pass the big river vessel? Are we maintaining the river properly? Now, let us find. We need to solve this problem. Though BIMSTEC, ASEAN, they're working. We saw for a long time. ASEAN doing good, a bit good. About SAARC, almost nothing happened. Hybrid is BIMSTEC. We need to take account. How did BIMSTEC do? I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to be optimistic. Let us try together. I will tell about 3 T. That is tourism, trade, and obviously issues of taxes. If we can solve these 3 T, I believe more multimodal transport, not only in rivers, but in all the areas. The small rivers, we are talking about the big rivers, Brahmaputra. So many small rivers are there. Basin-wide management should be considered very seriously. Our father of the nation, Bangabandhu, he told in Bangla, dabaye rakhte parba na. So none can resist. So Bangladesh facing so many problems. And obviously, lower riparian country used to face these problems. But still, We from Bangladesh used to tell, dabai rakhte parba na. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Azad Saab. May I request the only lady on our panel to go first, if you don't mind, Ashish ji.
Thank you very much, and I'll try to be brief as well. I think today two things have come out very clearly in the sessions that we've had. One, of course, is the clear commitment towards connectivity, and the reason we are here today. We have such a strong presence from across the region, both South Asia and ASEAN. So this is very important to see that. The other thing, of course, is that water is a very emotive issue. We also had several anecdotes and stories. My name, Mandakini, actually is a synonym for the Ganga. So clearly it's very important for all of us. But what I'll do today is, as our chair said, I represent the World Bank. So I will talk about the economic benefits of cooperation. And I will try and not throw too many numbers at you, but the World Bank has done some research on this. So let me share a little bit of that. I'll structure my remarks around three areas: a little bit about overall connectivity in South Asia. Then I'll speak a little bit about waterways, and then I'll end with some suggested priority actions, because I think it's important when we are at sessions like this, we also think about next steps and what next. I think one number that we constantly hear is that South Asia is in fact one of the least integrated regions in terms of trade and connectivity. That intra-regional trade in South Asia is 4.3%. compared with 26% amongst the ASEAN countries. And of course, the European Union is at 62%. But to put this in terms of an example, so for an Indian company, it is 15 to 20% less expensive to trade with Brazil or Germany than it is with Bangladesh. And I think that just displays to us what we talk about when we mean connectivity and trade. But I think we can make no mistake that regional cooperation and collaboration do matter. And I think today that's the reason we are all here today. Again, let me give you a couple of examples to illustrate this. So we've heard about the BBI and MVA. Now, if there were full transport integration between India and Bangladesh, and we know that our High Commissioner is doing everything to ensure that, but if there were a situation where trucks don't have to stop at the border and can use any border post and roads in both countries, then there are estimates that income levels could rise as much as 16.6% in Bangladesh and 7.6% in India. So this is, again, it's in the public domain, it's a number. But also, I think for the Northeast, if trucks from Agartala could travel to Kolkata via Bangladesh, they would experience a 65% reduction in time and a 68% reduction in cost. So I think that just brings home the importance of this connectivity. And I think the countries realize that. So within South Asia, for instance, we have India's Act East policy, Neighborhood First policy, Bangladesh's 8th five-year plan, all of which place importance of competitiveness, trade-related growth. We've seen that. Turning now to waterways, we heard in the morning from the Bangladesh's foreign minister, he spoke about how goods earlier traveled by water. And it's true that, there was a stage when waterways carried 70% of goods and passengers within the region. That's now down to 2%. And in fact, 75% of intra-regional trade occurs now on roads. We've run some estimates, and I think we can say that the importance of seamless waterways connectivity in South Asia cannot be overstated. If goods were transported by water, the cost would be 40% less than by road, and it would consume 75 to 80% less fuel. So this also responds to some of the comments on climate, COP26. the load that one barrage carries is the equivalent of roughly 15 railway wagons and 60 trucks. So that's the number we are looking at when you think about fuel, when you think about time, and also congestion. At the World Bank, what we are doing is that we are supporting India and Bangladesh to consolidate their many individual investments into what we call a comprehensive Eastern Waterway Grid. And this is several projects that come together. For the support that we are providing is about 1.7 billion already approved and looking projected to about 2.5 billion. And what this will do is that this will leverage IWT networks of about 3,500 kilometers to connect the BBIN region. But more importantly, also provide last mile connectivity to landlocked Nepal, Bhutan, and allow improved India-Bangladesh-Myanmar trade. I would like to now, we've spoken a lot about connectivity and infrastructure, but I think there are three important things in the World Bank's approach that I would like to briefly highlight. The first, very important, is inclusivity. So as we are thinking about these waterways as trade, very important, and that's something that we build into our design and our approach, is ensuring safe and secure IWT infrastructure for women, for children, for differently abled, which includes the modernization of vessels, terminals, dedicated helplines, and sensitization trainings. The second important aspect of our approach is responsible and sustainable IWT. So I won't go into detail, but just to say, for instance, future-proofing for sustainable investments, such as design of terminals to factor in sea level rise, protection of aquatic life, biodiversity. We've heard about the river dolphin, the Gangetic river dolphin. So these are aspects which are also important to keep in mind as we talk about connectivity. And also integrating DRM measures. So for instance, in India, we have worked closely to develop a DRM framework for waterways for the first time, which is now being rolled out across the board. And so the third part of our approach, inclusivity, sustainability, and finally, wider economic benefits. So it's important as we take forward these IWT that we keep in mind the importance of developing the local economy and livelihood, local farm to market access, livelihood programs for the riverine population. And I think that's something that India is doing through, for instance, the Arth Ganga program. Let me now turn finally to my third part, which is looking ahead. What needs to be done to fully realize the potential of regional waterways connectivity in South Asia? And of course, I think today we heard extensively about linkages to ASEAN. We also know the rising importance of the Indo-Pacific. So how do we take forward this connectivity? And let me outline to you three areas which are critical for this. The first, and I think it's the obvious, is infrastructure. I think especially for waterways where you do need to have seamless regional multimodal connectivity, which requires a set of domestic as well as regional building blocks. So in order for us to go beyond ASEAN, we have to think of the country, we have to think of the region, and then beyond the region. And what we are looking at is a set of road, rail, IWT corridors that can handle current, but also future freight volumes in a timely and cost-effective manner. Also, these multimodal corridors need to be connected to local and rural markets and logistics so that the wider benefits can flow down to the local communities and businesses. Second area looking forward is institutions. Following a whole of government approach to create an institutional structure that can, harmonization of standards, including waterways and trade protocols, and building on digital initiatives. And finally, the third priority area is cross-border knowledge and dialogue platforms. I think we cannot overemphasize the importance of engaging with a variety of stakeholders. One sector that hasn't really been mentioned today is the private sector, where a lot of the demand will be generated. So let me conclude by saying that boosting seamless regional connectivity, multimodal connectivity, requires developing a unified understanding of this multimodal approach that brings together policy, investments, and operational responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was excellent and most useful. Ashish ji, would you like to go next? Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, many things have been discussed. So, whatever I wanted to speak, most of the many things have been discussed. So, on this topic, to begin with, so I like to highlight what we are doing in Nepal in terms of trade facilitation. So we have 7 dry ports in Nepal. Only one is connected to the railway system, and other dry ports are connected to roadways. And we are always looking the ways to reduce the logistics cost. And we are really working hard to connect our trade corridor with railway system. So we have one railway connection to Birganj, and now the next we are trying to connect railway to Biratnagar dry port. So we call it Biratnagar integrated checkpoint. So for us, multimodal connectivity is a very important aspect, and we are also working on it. And so for this, so I think in this region, so if we want to implement multimodal connectivity, so we need to, first of all, we need to have all facilitating infrastructure. So when we talk about multimodal transportation system, so we can have waterways in place, railway, roadways, even ropeways, or even the airways. So how can we then implement multimodal transportation system? That we need to understand when we need to formulate the enabling infrastructure. So infrastructure is required, and institutions are required, and enabling rules, regulations are required. So if we have all infrastructure, institution, policies, acts and regulation, so we can move to multimodal transportation system. So that is what we need to, that is what the BIMSTEC countries we need to understand, and then we can then go on implementing a multimodal transportation system or multimodal connectivity. So this should be a collaborative approach, and we should work together in a collaboration to reduce transportation cost. And Nepal being major, we are importing countries. So we importing country, we export very less. We are mostly importing. So to reduce the cost to the consumer, also we try to reduce the whole trade cost. So the private sector in Nepal, they are also demanding government of Nepal to implement multimodal connectivity. So the private sector, they are also pushing government of Nepal to implement multimodal connectivity. That means Nepal will benefit if we can apply this perspective. On this, on inland waterways connectivity, so we need to explore the possibilities, how we can connect this the region, and we can connect Nepal. That we need to understand, and we need to implement. Likewise, I also said, so we need railway connectivity in the region. So in Nepal, so our trade cost is much higher compared to India or even Bangladesh. So we are also working to have rail connectivity to Nepal. So we need to then frame a regional trade facilitation committee with private and government high-level member. So this is the, I think this will be the way forward. So we need to have facilitating a committee with government and private sector. So that will help to formulate the policies, that will help to establish the institutions, and that will also recommend the required infrastructure. So I think the formation of such committee is essential if we really want to promote multimodal connectivity in this region. And also we need to it is also important to focus on political economic aspect of infrastructure development in the region, along with the economic benefit aspect. So we need to also understand from the political economic aspect. So when we implement multimodal connectivity, so I think so we all are convinced that multimodal connectivity will benefit the region. But now we need to work together in a collaboration. We need to work in collaboration to implement this concept. So as I said earlier, so we need infrastructure, we need policies, we need institution, and that is how we can implement multimodal transportation system in this region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes if I can eat into the tea time. Would anybody like to offer a comment or ask a question? Yes, please, ma'am. I'm glad it meant that we've kept you awake.
Okay, I'm Professor Sarah Hilali. I've worked on transportation history of the Northeast, particularly railways. So one thing, a basic question is, we're all talking here right from the morning about, connectivities. It took us 75 years to realize that we lost that railway line which was there from Chittagong to Dibrugarh, and we want to reconnect it. And we've been very wary about reconnecting because within the country and within this particular state of Assam through which all the networks are going, we have this whole issue of, creating a bogey of nationalism based on Bangladesh and Bangladeshis. So apparently it seems that in the political front, we want to have that image. We want to keep our constituents like this. And at the same time, we want connectivity. So it looks like probably like if you want having a railway line, you only want freight trains to come and not humans traveling. And here you're calling about people-to-people connection. So I really find the whole ideas very contradictory. And I think whatever the challenges other people have mentioned about, the challenges is probably stemming from the attitudes that we are having. I had a friend who had come and she was telling me, when we want to engage with with Myanmar, Assam would always like to talk about the brutalities of the Man invasion or the Burmese invasion. They would like to recollect that. And then they would talk about people-to-people connectivity not happening. So we have to operate with real brass tacks of the historical realities there. We have, I think, a change of attitude in the mental space is more necessary rather than doing these kinds of exercises. That's there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sanjoyda, the mic in front, please. Here.
I'm Sanjay Hazarika. Anybody can take this question, but I'm interested that Mandakini, you and our friend from Kathmandu spoke about the multi-nodal form of connectivity. Now, I'm just interested as somebody who's worked in the field a lot and you to see the river shrinking. All the rivers are shrinking. How, you're talking about major cruises, etc., etc. How are you going to do that when the river is actually getting smaller? And the main times when tourists come is in the winter, and the river is a shadow itself. Even in Bangladesh, it is completely silted up. There's no water. The water bodies, the reels are all, the howers are all silted up. So there is a interconnectivity that we need to look at, which, you need to look at what is the reality on the ground. And the second part of the comment is, it's not really a question, is do you consult people? I mean, this is all top-driven. It's policy-driven. It's scientists and technicians are involved. Economists are involved. but other people consulted because the people have a better sense of what's happening around them than people who are living in cities and make policies.
Thank you very much. Would any of the panelists want to comment first? Oh, sorry, lady at the back. I'll take a last comment because we 4:30 here. We should wrap this one up. I don't want to delay the state minister beyond that. We've actually then quite magically come on schedule then.
Thank you. I would like to...
Could you introduce yourself, please, ma'am?
Yes, I am Mrs. Sangeeta Saikya Pathak. I am a representative of the Actis Policy Affairs Department, Government of Assam. So my question relates to Professor Sarah Hilali ma'am's question. It's a bit relatable because, yes, she has said the correct thing that we are, on the one hand, we are trying to, open connectivities. And on the other hand, when we go back to our historical, you may say, misfortunes. Okay. So the thing is that, like I was being educated in a convent school. Okay. So while I was being educated in a convent school, I never got any such this thing, like these are mans. Okay. Then these belong to a complete different religion. Okay. But gradually, as I grew bigger, then I began to realize that there is some oral transmission of these misfortunes from one generation to the another. We don't write about these in the textbooks, in our Indian textbooks, but there is some kind of oral transmission going on. So I think we should try at least, to practice what we actually learn, I mean, we are all humans, This kind of thinking is there in the textbook, but when it comes to reality, we bring about these divisions, or rather the misfortunes.
Okay.
So I think...
Point taken.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Would anybody like to, please?
Thank you. So I think just to say to Professor Hazarika that these are, I think these are very important points. And I alluded to some of them in terms of talking about the sustainability of both the design and the investments, as well as the importance of consulting with stakeholders, a variety of stakeholders at every stage. And I think we do this and we are happy to do more of this. But I think you're talking not just about one agency, but across the board. I think that point is valid and well taken. Thanks.
Azad Saab, you wanted to?
I will just address on the issue of the river filtration. Exactly, we need the basin-wide management and huge program on dredging. World Bank and Asian Development Bank all are supporting both India, Bangladesh, and I believe this is equally correct for Nepal and Bhutan. In our country, what Prime Minister did, whenever there is a project on the water-related issue, then she keeps embargo that at least 50% needs to keep for the dredging. I strongly believe if we continue this with a stronger initiative for dredging the river, then long-standing issue of filtration of river will go away. At the same time, in Bangladesh, we have kept the issue of not only dredging, but maintenance dredging, not capital dredging only. So this needs to be comprehensive India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan dredging program. Then only this may be very successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly attempt to summarize things. We have about a minute left. I think the larger point that needs to be made here is that there is broad understanding of the importance of connectivity, multimodal, riverine, etc. There are serious questions about the capacity of the ecosystem to sustain it and the capacity of our collective political systems to be able to look at economic and sustainability-based solutions to facilitate connectivity across the sub-region, whether multimodal or single mode connectivity. There is clearly an economic logic for this in terms of the interesting statistics that Ms. Kaul brought out, in terms of the cost savings that could materialize. And there were issues relating to how you actually approach the question of connectivity in a complex, recent Westphalian model of states that are recently sort of been separated from each other. If I may offer two quick comments, taking the privilege of the chair in this particular case. One, I think the point that I made at the outset was that we are looking at recently independent nation states. So the idea of history is very much part of what we do. But the second point that I think perhaps, Professor, if I may politely correct you, actually connectivity has started with people's connectivity, not goods connectivity. We have railway trains working between Dhaka and Calcutta, Khulna and Calcutta, and we're starting one from Dhaka to New Jalpaiguri. These are all passenger trains. Rail-based connectivity has not actually happened. Similarly, the movement of people by road has actually been in place for more than Mr. Vajpayee, as Prime Minister, went to Bangladesh to start the first bus. So road-based and rail-based connectivity of people has actually preceded the movement of goods. Second, the point that Shonjoy Da made, has anybody consulted the people? But actually the simple point is, it is people who are now actually asking for connectivity. Connectivity is being driven by demand for transportation services and by demand for cheaper and more efficient goods connectivity, so that actually the cost of production and the cost of doing business can be reduced. At some point of time, both economic and social costs, or economic and social pressures for these things will supersede political challenges. And that, I think, is where we are currently not. We need to find a way in which the political and sort of, shall I say, historical baggage can be dismounted in favor of taking forward connectivity through sound economic logic, through sound focus on people's interest, and through means that are, as Mandakini said, sustainable. Thank you very much to everybody for listening in, and I've cut into 2 minutes of your time, Minister Saab, so apologies for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I request Mr. Sabyasachi Datta, Executive Director of Asian Confluence, to kindly come and felicitate the chair and all the panelists. I'd like to thank the chair and the panelists. Thank you very much. There will be a group photograph. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, taking a look at the time, we will not break for tea. Whoever wants to have tea can go out and get their tea. We will continue. We will continue with our sessions. Next is